This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, just another voice in the wilderness. Today I want to talk about the sociocultural nature of self perception, self awareness, and conscience. Um, I want to start with embodied mind. The human mind, the human mind, um, the human mind. I mean, for many people, human mind, soul, spirit, uh, self, higher self, and stuff like that is the true, uh, the true self, the true person, the true identity, and um, this brings the dual understanding of human nature. The understanding that human beings exist as as a living organism with a body, uh, but the human being, the individual, the self itself, the mind, the soul, is not material. For some, is energy. For others, it is a spark of God. I mean, uh, then according to the karma to the karma philosophy, and maybe in the others, I don't know everything about this, but this process of reincarnation as a process of achieving, I don't know if I'm correct, nirvana, to achieve kind of this liberation from the cycle of lives, from the suffering of life. Life is somehow seen, perceived as a burden. Um, of course, there are many things about life that exists cruelty in nature. I would not call it cruelty. Cruelty is a human concept, okay? It it's how nature operates. Since nature and the living beings need to eat each other in order to survive, and in order that life is compatible with a limited planet. So that's that's it seems to be the nature of life, the law of the laws of life. So there is suffering uh, in many levels: physical, emotional. There is loss, because it's the problem of loss for human beings. Um, Loss of our loved ones, and I mean there is disease. So there are these the, there are life can be, and can be perceived, and can indeed it is for some people, for many people, it can be really a bad experience. But we need to separate the experience of suffering that is caused by natural laws, okay, the natural laws of diseases outbreaks or an epidemic or whatever it is, which is, since we live in there are, since so there are that we need to understand that there are limits that are natural, and there are other limits. There are much That's a lot suffering that comes from natural reasons and roots, and there are most of our suffering comes from manufactured conditions, manufactured experiences, which means they are sociocultural experiences. Um, and this is what we need to, we need to learn to separate, when we have an analysis about the suffering associated with life, we should understand what we should understand what is natural suffering, that is associated with living organisms, and can be very painful, and that's true. But what we need to have this perception, this nuanced perception, that most of our suffering is caused by sociocultural conditions. We know that, for example, if we build cities or large agglomeration of a large population, and we don't have a sewage system, we don't have any sanitary conditions, we are artificially manufacturing the conditions for the development of epidemics that can cause a lot of suffering, artificial suffering, because this suffering would not come into being if there was not the conditions that make it make it possible to happen. It's the same with the rats, with all the problems that we have associated with these manufactured conditions that do not exist in nature. And so this is one part of the problem. These artificial conditions, physical, material, infrastructural conditions that we can create, and they are not favorable for the flourishment of life. Okay, they are these conditions that can really cause unnecessary suffering. The other part is cultural, and by cultural I include everything. When you have a society structured in class or castes, this is a cultural. And the economy, the structure of society, with these divisions, these hierarchical divisions, with rights and rules and duties, and and some feeling entitled to have what others cannot have, or feel entitled to cause pain, to inflict pain, to use violence, to because of this superiority, this feeling of entitlement, to cause suffering in others, not because of because the culture once built, once we have a culture established, we usually, most of us, play by the rules, because this becomes our identity. This becomes how we perceive ourselves. This becomes how we relate to each other. This becomes the patterns by which we learn our behaviors. We learn to understand our environment, in this case, the built environment. And then we cause suffering, moral, emotional, physical suffering. We make people feel bad about themselves. We create these narratives, these moral narratives, which a moral narrative is the weaponization of ideas, values, and principles. Okay, that's what the instrumentalization, weaponization of certain values, and use shame, use shame and guilt that we as human beings with a conscience. That's why conscience is not neutral. Conscience exists as a sociocultural entity. It exists as an individual experience, but in the context of a sociocultural experience and the reality and the environment. So all this pain, unnecessary suffering, diseases that don't, people that die early, that without any need that we can see, problems with addictions, alienation, and many other problems, they are not natural. They have nothing to do with the natural suffering. This suffering is caused by the establishment of a dysfunctional system that is inadequate for the flourishing of humanity, for the flourishment, for the humanization and flourishment of humans as human beings, that have this inherent ability of that is biological. This is something that has to do with for whatever reason we came to be, we came to have this hard problem of consciousness, that we are self-aware, we have self-perception, and we have a conscience. But these things exist in each one of us as a self-experience, as an individual experience. But what we need to understand, that they are not individual experience. They are sociocultural experiences. You know, conscience, when we have the ability to feel, to have these feelings that it is us, that we are this conscience. But that conscience it works not in abstract. It works with the real life, you know, and it makes, the idea of justice, trust, truth, these ideas, these principles, these concepts are relational. They are sociocultural concepts. We 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 are able to think about them in abstract terms, but in reality they only exist as part, as sociocultural experiences that we are conscious, that we can be self-aware. We are conscious that we experience, and we can reflect on them, but those reflections are not free, in the sense that they do not spring out of nothing. They are always a base, a concept. There is not always a narrative, or a body of narratives that gives them context. And that's why it is important to understand the species, our species, as these sociocultural beings. What does it mean? What does it mean, the process by which we are indoctrinated and instrumentalized through the weaponization of values, to the build of narratives? And the problem, and this is intrinsic to us, the need for justice, for trust and truth, is inherent to a species that needs to trust in each other, to cooperate, to survive, to reciprocate. That's why we need a sense of justice. You know, this is not a luxury. This is not something that is just you know. Even animals have it to some. Animals may or may not have conscience. I don't know. If you ask me, I think if they do have it, it's very rudimentary. You know, but even they have some sort of sense of trust. You know, the need to trust each other, to cooperate, especially the species that are social species, that live in groups. They cooperate. They back each other. They learn with each other. Besides what they have besides the instincts, they learn with each other. All the animals learn, by the way, even the animals that are not considered social species, that basically live on their own. The youngsters always learn techniques from especially from their mothers, survival techniques, how to find food, how to catch a prey, how to find water, or whatever it is, what to fear, how to defend themselves. These things are learned. I mean, there is a basis as part of the instincts of the animal, but there's also a part of it that is learned, especially in animals that are more developed. Mammals, for example, most mammals. And not only mammals, you can find it in birds and in other species. So we cannot understand human conscious as if it is a thing that we have and that's it. No, we have it. This is the same. What I'm saying goes for everything. It's true for everything. It's true for critical thinking, for the development of critical thinking, of the ability to develop our discernment, our ability to have a sound analysis of the reality. Otherwise, we become cynics that don't care. Everything is relative, and we just have to think about ourselves. Just the pursuit or self-interest, and all the rest that goes with it, and we become these anti-social animals. That doesn't mean that we do not interact with others, that we socialize. But by socializing, the professional level or in other roles in society that we don't really, we are not we are not implementing you are not humanizing us through this process. We are not, by humanizing, I mean that we are becoming more human, more more human means to me the definition of being a human being is that we over time grow our ability, which is natural, which is which are traits of our identity, our human identity, our human specifications, which is empathy and compassion. I could not imagine us as a species to survive without it, without that ability, because it's associated with trust, is connected with cooperation, with solidarity. This is features that are essential. Those traits are essential for a social species. Even the ability to endure suffering, to help others, to sacrifice our own lives to help others. That's deeply human. But we can have a culture, we can build a sociocultural system that instead of producing the flourishing of these, it does the opposite. It makes us callous, cynic, selfish, narcissistic, hedonistic bastards. So, this, to me, what I'm trying to say is that everything about human beings can be shaped, can be weaponized, can be instrumentalized. And it can be to transform us. We can have an economy, a political system, a culture that really enhances the very traits of the human condition, or we can corrupt them. We can shrink them by allowing those that lack them, by allowing the people that um, do not feel compassion and empathy for whatever reason, innate or acquired, to use their advantage. Since they don't have it, they don't care about the suffering they cause, the unnecessary suffering they cause to others. And I mean others, human beings, the environment, nature, the earth systems, in order to fulfill their whims, their narcissistic objectives, their megalomaniacal goals, their grandiose nightmares, to build temples and monuments and whatever it is to eternalize their memory for the glory of themselves, because they usually they compare themselves to gods. And we as sociocultural creatures, we can fall. That's what we are supposed to be. We are supposed to be influenced by each other. We are supposed to, as I keep saying, we are bits and pieces of other people's knowledge and experience. We don't lose our identity. We don't lose our ability to feel, to have this self-perception, this self-awareness, and this conscious of our own, that we don't lose it by carrying these loads, by being shaped by what is in the environment, by our own experience, by our own relation and interaction, the relation with other entities, and the experience and interaction with the environment. We don't lose it. We build it. That's why conscious is not. We need to understand this, to separate the ability, the natural, innate ability or trait to be a conscious being, to have a conscience, or to have the ability for self-analysis, or for develop to develop critical thinking and analytical skills. That they exist, they are part of us as who we are. It's about our genetic heritage as a species. But the way we develop them, it is where we need to focus. Because if we do not understand that that we are shaped, that most of what we think, as we think about ourselves, this tremendous power of the individual, okay, that we think we have, free choice, free decision, the ability to exercise free choice and free decision, and this ability to have opinions about everything and this and that, and not understanding how deeply influenced we are, all of us. There is not a single, and not only influenced by the limits of our intellectual ability, the limits of our discernment, and why we need others to correct us, and why there is no reason whatsoever to think that we are kind of naturally, we have this ability to know, to be right, without the need of developing the traits that would allow us to correct ourselves, to be, to have a better and a deeper self-analysis of what really influences us, of what the goals of life should be. And instead of becoming, you know, callous, cynics, and you know, these hypocrites, as if these are the real traits of human beings, as if this was how we developed ourselves, how the species survived over hundreds of millions of years. Because we take the type of civilization, this paradigm, this civilizational paradigm, that I call it imperialistic civilization paradigm, and you can trace it. In spite of the good things that we could achieve with this civilization, we need to understand how it, who were the rulers, and how it was, how the institutions were shaped, and still the same institutions, the same format, the same paradigm operating today. Because these institutions were really they were developed and perfected by those that really lack the traits, the human traits, the basic human traits that would allow us to have lives with much less suffering, because there are a lot of unnecessary suffering that is caused to the human species that is not natural. It is manufactured, and then we say, I mean, this, you know, like, oh, so much suffering, it's a pity, is this and that, but it has always been like this, and humans don't learn. And yeah, we don't learn. If nothing changes in our environment, we don't learn. We just copy and paste. We memorize. We mimic. That's mimicry and repetition. While thinking that's about free choice and free decision and liberty and democracy. Yes, sure. So this is, to me, crucial to understand that we have agency, we do have a conscience, but in order to use the power of self-perception and the power of self-awareness to have a sound self-analysis and to understand the concepts, to understand our language framing, our logical fallacies, and rhetoric tricks, and demagoguery, and whatever, and all the movies, the films, the use of arts, the use of facts to build half-truth stories, or even totally fake stories, how that affects us, how we need to develop the critical skills, the critical thinking and analytical skills, because we cannot talk about freedom or free decision or free choice without developing these traits, that they are natural, they are innate, but they need to be trained. Otherwise, we are always falling into traps language traps, ideological traps. As long as we believe or trust in the sources, we are easily deceived because we don't care to look for the facts. We don't care about the development of our own conscience. Don't understand what conscience is. Because as long as we think those things, we have them, instead of understanding that we build them, and then they can be changed and shaped by the influence of others, whether we understand it or not, because it's not about understanding it or perceiving it. It's about how we are as a sociocultural species. That's about understanding our nature, not faking it, not justifying our nature, saying that we are like this and we cannot be different and we have been always like blah blah blah. All this rubbish, pseudoscience, in many cases supposedly science-based facts, when it's not even pseudoscience, it's fake science, for-profit fake science. And that's where we are. And we will, in the end, will kill ourselves. I mean, we will end up annihilating our species and destroying the Earth systems. We can even build a very beautiful so-called ecological society, and still we totally transform this planet as if we own it. But for some, we own it because God said so. And all these perceptions, starting from the basis that I truly believe that most of us don't have a good conceptual, intellectual understanding of the meaning of what a sociocultural being is. Who am I to say this? Now, yes, you can ask, what are your credentials? Yes, my credentials is that I've been trying all my life, even with the shitty jobs, and trying to survive, and all the pain that this society caused, to all the psychological pain, psycho-emotional pain that I went through all my life. But I never, for whatever reason, I never quit it. Asking the questions, listening and reading. Many people from many different fields, self-taughting myself, but always looking to understand, not to sell anything to anyone. And I'm still very poor, barely having enough to survive, and nevertheless I don't quit. I am 65 years old, and I am still every day. This is a process to humanize yourself, to be a human being. You need to invest in it. And when the environment is pushes you in the other way, which is exactly my point, that we are so sophisticated, we have such beautiful, we can build, architecture, engineering, science, technology. We have this technofixism and technoscientism and all these cults. This is even worse than theologies, than an idea of these cults that we have with these new tech bros. And if we can, because we need to resist, we need to think outside the box. You don't do it naturally. You need to. You might have the traits, the personality traits, or the temperament that pushes you in that direction. But we need to do it, to use our will, which is an important point, to fight against the overwhelming power, the power of the weapons of mass deception and mass distraction that are omnipresent in our society. And they are not there to free us. This is not part of a culture of liberation. This is part of perception measurement to manufacture consent. And we need to understand it. If we want to build a different world, a humanized world, and try not to destroy the earth, stop this craziness about going to Mars. It won't happen. And even if it happens, what's the purpose of that? Even if technologically it is possible, think that it is. What's the point of it? What do we want to prove with it? This is why it's so basic that we need to start to understand, to have a concept, to have narratives that makes us go back to what is the meaning of being a sociocultural being. To be a human, which is to be a human being in our case, but also to be a living being. Instead of thinking about this mind separated from the body, soul and this and that and this. I mean, honestly, I do respect, maybe people don't understand it, but I do respect religious people when they are sensible, I do respect them and I understand them. But the problem with me with those concepts and ideas is that they tend, in many cases, to devalue life, to devalue embodied life, which is the only life we know that exists. It is our experience. It is my body that feels. It is my cognitive systems, cognitive affective system that think, that reasoning. And but since it's so easy for us to build these fictional explanations and justifications, and we don't understand that they have consequences. That's one of the problems that we also have, that we sometimes don't understand the consequences of the narratives, of the ideas. Because many times they are created, they are crafted to justifying a dysfunctional system, to justify a pyramid scheme that is unnatural, that has nothing to do, that it doesn't explain the socio-cultural condition of the human being. It just explains that we have the capabilities to build them. It doesn't explain us. It explains that we have the capabilities to build them. We can develop the skills to build them. That's what it explains. It doesn't explain the nature of our condition. But we can reverse, and we can manipulate all these, and then we become slaves, servants, useful idiots, cannon fodder, and expendable pawns of a system that only serves a minority, at the expenses of everything else. Because if if most of that minority have share common traits. Usually they are uh, opportunists without scruples. They have these big visions, these megalomaniacal visions. They are sociopathic or psychopathic, narcissistic and megalomaniacal. What do you expect when their whatever they want to do is more important than anything else? When they do not care at all the amount of unnecessary suffering they cause? What do we expect? What do we expect the society to become if we need to survive? The only way is to understand the system, to understand the reality as uh, as processes, systems, and things in relation. There is no other way to understand it. So I'm going to end it here for today. Of course, there is a lot of things to say. I mean, I cannot. I mean, you have to understand that this is what comes from my mind. This is not rehearsed. So this is nothing. I don't write. So you have to understand that the things that I say, they need to be complement. They are not. I mean, I just I do my best, but that's okay. I hope um, it will spark in in some people that the will to challenge ourselves, to challenge our perception, to challenge what we are told. I'm not supposed to copy paste, to memorize. That's not what the creative imagination is about. Intellectual curiosity, critical thinking, and the ability to have a sound analysis. That is characteristics of a human being, not what we have people doing in academia and to fulfill in the professional managerial class, to fulfill to have successful careers and whatever it is. That's not what that's how we become hypocrites and cynics, and we don't care about anything else but our well-being, the well-being of our families, and all this you know that's the well-being of our class, professional class, corporation, or whatever it is. We just don't see what's wrong with it. We don't even we are not even able to perceive what's wrong with it, to understand what's wrong with it. All right. Thank you for listening. I will be back soon.